Some effects of that computer mess on Friday are still with us on Monday.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by Progressive Insurance. Customers can simplify their insurance needs and protect what's important by bundling home and auto. Learn more about bundling at progressive.com. And by UKG. UKG is a partner that delivers HR, pay, time, and culture solutions designed to help build a great workplace for everyone. UKG, our purpose is people.
I'm David Brancaccio in New York. First, President Biden's decision to end his re-election bid means there's now 6 months left before a new president comes in. There's the matter of legacy, and on our beat here, Joe Biden's emerging economic legacy. Marketplace's senior Washington correspondent Kimberly Adams joins me now. Morning, Kimberly.
Good morning, David.
President Biden stays president for just about another 6 months, but let's now talk about what kind of economic policies might eventually be associated with Biden.
Of course, that's one for the historians, but it looks like Biden will likely be remembered for safely bringing the economy out of the COVID pandemic. Like most presidents, he'll probably get both credit and blame for things that may or may not have been completely under his control. But I asked Jennifer Victor, who teaches political science at George Mason University, how she thinks history is going to remember the Biden economy.
I suspect historians are going to be very kind to Joe Biden. Most of his policy legacy is on the domestic politics front, dealing with COVID, the economic calamities that COVID produced, and other things that happened in terms of investing in green energies.
Some of the big wins include the American Rescue Plan early in his administration, the Inflation Reduction Act, which was a big win for him on climate policy, and then, of course, finally getting an infrastructure law passed.
Yet, the state of the U.S. economy has hurt Biden with many voters.
Right. Ironically, despite the fact that we avoided the post-COVID recession that a lot of people predicted, Biden is still struggling with the economy. It's been a weak point for his entire campaign. Of course, the big reason for that has been inflation, which the White House blamed on supply chains and corporate greed, but many Americans and, of course, Republicans blamed on the administration. Felicia Wong is president and CEO of the progressive advocacy group Roosevelt Forward.
I do think that now that prices are not just stabilizing, but we're actually seeing the drop in prices, including housing prices, I think some of the legacy of price increases will start to taper off, but that's been really tough for the president.
Now, some of the president's work were investments, getting big projects going that will take time, will take years to actually vest.
A good example of this is the CHIPS Act, which was a record investment in the future of the semiconductor industry here in the U.S., but we're going to need some time and distance before we really see it play out.
Yeah. So from the emerging legacy to, I got a practical question, maybe the question of the morning. What happens, Kimberly, to the campaign cash that Biden has been raising all this time now that he's stepping out?
This has been a big question, and I asked Shanna Ports, senior legal counsel for campaign finance at the Campaign Legal Center, about this just yesterday. And here's what she said.
Vice President Harris gets to keep access to the money that is in the campaign committee so long as she is designated as the presidential candidate or the vice presidential candidate. And in the last few hours today, the campaign has gone ahead and filed the paperwork with the FEC to put her on the line as the presidential candidate and keep her on that committee.
Now, Port says if Harris is not the eventual Democratic nominee, there's also a way for the formerly Biden campaign to give cash to the party as well as some super PACs and then route the money back to other candidates that way, but it's a bit more complicated.
All right, but a lot of campaign ads are going to have to be recrafted, whoever is the nominee. Marketplace's senior Washington correspondent Kimberly Adams, thank you.
Thank you, David.
A market story, we're tracking the smaller, lesser-known companies that are having their moment on the stock market as the big tech names droop. According to a Wall Street Journal calculation, the Russell 2000 stock index that has a lot of lesser-known companies beat the S&P 500 index over a one-week stretch by the biggest margin since Ronald Reagan was president. This morning, the Russell 2000 futures are up 0.5%, S&P futures up 0.7%, NASDAQ futures are up 1.1%.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by Amazon Business, aiming to help save time by offering smart business buying solutions so there's more time to focus on growing the business and less time doing the admin. More at AmazonBusiness.com. And by Schwab. Schwab offers investors choices like full-service wealth management, self-directed investing options, and trading on Thinkorswim. More at Schwab.com. And by Rubrik. When cyber attacks put businesses at risk, Rubrik provides the power to bounce back fast. More at Rubrik.com.
While Microsoft is saying the underlying problem has now been fixed, the effects of a third-party computer network security company releasing a faulty update on Friday are still being felt around the world. Austin-based CrowdStrike has been taking responsibility for all those Windows computers stuck trying to turn back on. Marketplace's Nova Safo is here with an update.
We have some new numbers this morning as to the breadth of the tech outage. CrowdStrike says that 8.5 million Windows devices were impacted. That's globally. It says a significant number of those are back online, but no firm number there. One of the biggest hurdles has been that fixing this mess has been slow and complicated and requires manually working on each affected system. So it's welcome news that CrowdStrike now says it's figured out a way to accelerate that process, but it's still working out the details on how to deploy that new method, David.
Dare I call it the days the world got crowd-struck? So, Nova, when can we expect systems to get back to normal?
Well, that's a really good question, and we simply don't know. Most big companies and institutions did recover fairly quickly on Friday. A lot of small businesses, though, which don't have IT departments, are still struggling. Airlines have gotten much of the attention because the disruption cascades through their schedules, but by that benchmark, this isn't over yet, David. Delta Airlines has been the most affected. It's still canceling a significant number of flights. It's also facing heightened scrutiny over its customer service response. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg yesterday said his department has received hundreds of complaints about Delta, and it will hold the company responsible for not refunding customers when necessary.
All right, Nova, thank you. Delta Airlines has canceled now 653 flights today. That's 17%. American Airlines has canceled just 1% by comparison. In New York, I'm David Brancaccio, Marketplace Morning Report, 8 p.m. American Public Media.